Someone named Frederick spoke up at the Virus Bulletin 2002 speakers panel. He blabbed of a well-known, decade-old, oft-described, world-devouring, theoretical, worst-case scenario computer virus, now called a flash worm. Listen.
Now, I was thinking about the politely an attack on that type of being, and I was kind of wondering about the worst case scenario. And the scary part, which I thought a bit about it, is that all the components we will need for a worst case scenario already exist. All the techniques exist. Just imagine the following. Something using a loop mode or a back or an ability to content or sometimes spreading extremely rapidly like overhead. Maybe using multiple infection vectors. Also, that thing which is being distributed is for some reason extremely hard to detect and something that the antivirus companies cannot respond to in 5 minutes or 10 minutes like they can do for the usual threats, like something like Smith's to the second power. I mean, it's a really complex thing. It may take us a day or two to, in theory, to respond to. And if you put all those nasty components together into one package and release it, perhaps with some nasty purpose, perhaps with the purpose of shutting down the economy of the US or some other something like that, then we have a really, really bad scenario. And the scary thing is this can happen with today's technology.
Antivirus firms respond within 5 minutes or 10 minutes for the usual pests, Frederick says? Wait a minute. Reactive antivirus firms like Symantec and Network Associates respond within 5 to 10 hours at best. The average for the industry is a day or more. Let's recall a bit of trivia, shall we? Network Associates discovered the Melissa virus in 1999 on a Thursday afternoon, and they worked feverishly until the wee hours of Monday morning to release a workable antivirus patch. Just to stop something written by a complete idiot, I might add. Network Associates then urged customers to stop producing work on PCs as a precaution months after a college student wrote the horrifying Chernobyl virus. I could bore you to tears with similar stories about the I Love You virus, the NIMDA virus, and tens of thousands of other pests you've never heard of. 5 minutes or 10 minutes sounds like a marketing pitch. Makes you kind of wonder where Frederick works, doesn't it? Once the vendor produces a workable antivirus update, it takes a few more hours to fire off 500,000 email alerts. If panic ensues, antivirus firms could get swamped by their own customers, and it'd take hours or days before everyone retrieved an update. Page 12. Okay, now let's discuss Frederick's notion of a worst-case scenario. What does it really mean at a security conference like Virus Bulletin 2002? Answer: it doesn't mean anything. Worst-case scenario remains undefined to this day in the antivirus community. Many things remain undefined in the antivirus community, but let's not digress. If you've been a longtime reader of my columns at vMyths, that's vmyths.com, then you know it behooves fearmongers to leave worst-case scenario undefined for marketing reasons. Why limit yourself to a boring, formal definition when you can let your customers' imaginations run wild? Virus Bulletin conferences deal with computer virus issues, as you would expect. I would therefore define a worst-case scenario at such a conference as the complete and permanent destruction of computing and interconnectivity via, number one, the nearly total global erasure of write-enabled storage media, and, number two, the nearly total global corruption of write-enabled firmware components. In other words, the world's landfills would swell with useless desktop computers, useless laptops, useless servers, routers, 70 SS boxes, SCADA equipment, power grid switches, NAS devices, PDAs, nuclear reactor control panels, you name it. Almost all Cat5 cables would grow cold worldwide, and almost all fiber optic cables would go dark. The U.S. and other first world nations would plunge into economic martial law. Let me quote White House fearmonger Richard Clarke in context. The federal government needs a reconstitution plan just to survive a worst-case scenario. Veselin Bonchev of Frisk warned the Virus Bulletin 2002 speakers panel that a worst-case scenario may be sufficient to take down whole economies, and it will happen in the next 5 to 10 years. However, I'll admit few of my colleagues would agree with the definition I gave you. Why not, Rob? Because few of my colleagues think about it, period. Let me explain. Page 13. Imagine a beach ball with the phrase, worst case scenario, printed on it in large letters. Okay, now imagine you tossed it into a crowd. Nobody really holds a beach ball for any length of time, do they? It just gets batted around. The game requires no thought, no strategy. I've got it, then you've got it, then she's got it, then he's got it. Some players spank it away. Others will set it up like a volleyball player. Everybody wishes it will come to them. People soon lose interest and it sinks to the ground. A beach ball waits patiently for another crowd to come along, ... My colleagues in the antivirus industry play with a worst-case scenario like you'd play with a beach ball. Nobody formally defines it, do they? It just gets batted around. The term requires no thought, no strategy. I've got it, then you've got it, then she's got it, then he's got it. Some people describe it as a virus outbreak. Others will describe it as a buffer overflow exploit. Everybody wishes they can speak up. The experts soon lose interest and it sinks to the table. A worst-case scenario waits patiently for another crowd of experts, ... Now you know why the experts grow sour when you ask them to define worst-case scenario. It takes all the fun out of the game. The experts don't want to define a worst-case scenario, so I asked a woman who works across the hall from me at the Wellman Advance newspaper here in this little town that I call Iowa. Renee Fladung shrugged her shoulders and said, I guess it would be that you can't use the internet. It dies and it's gone and you can never access it again. Her definition matches what many other non-experts express. If you say worst-case scenario to your grandmother, for example, she'll interpret it as nothing less than the death of the internet. But most computer security experts will claim you can't really kill the internet. They'll arrogantly dismiss Fladung's casual definition because she doesn't understand what she's talking about. To which Fladung should respond, then why don't you define it for us? Oddly, though, those same experts will dismiss my all-too-similar definition because it defies conventional beach ball wisdom. If a beach ball pops, another beach ball will take its place. Likewise, if the internet collapses, another internet will take its place. You'll find some interesting logic in this argument. Did the World Trade Center really die on 9/11 if another World Trade Center someday takes its place? Page 14. Okay, Rob, we see the logic. Do you subscribe to conventional beach ball wisdom? Yes, interconnectivity will never become a thing of the past. I mean, even if cave-dwelling cyber terrorists destroy the internet in the next 5 to 10 years, and even if its destruction may be sufficient to take down whole economies, it won't spell doom for the human race. Modern civilization, yes, but not the human race. Our descendants will someday reignite the fires of industry. Although probably not in our lifetime. I honestly believe an Internet 2.0 will rise up from the ashes like a cyber phoenix. As such, you've got a decent worst-case scenario if you remove the word permanent from the definition I gave you. Remove the word permanent, Rob? Why'd you stick it in there to begin with? I did it because I'm a critic. If the experts won't define it, then we should force them to accept what the overwhelming majority of non-experts out there think it means. You said most experts claim you can't kill the internet. Who thinks otherwise? White House fearmonger Richard Clarke, for one. He's an expert only by title, but let's not digress. He equates an assault on the internet to an assault on the American way of life. To hear him say it, the downfall of Internet 1.0 will trigger the downfall of United States 3.0 and Germany 58.1. Now, at this point, you might wonder if the moderator failed to ask Frederick to define his worst-case scenario at the Virus Bulletin 2002 speakers panel. I'll defend Carrie Natchenberg here. Moderators want their panelists to do most of the talking. not some guy in the audience named Frederick. Nachenberg did a fine job as moderator, and I'll leave it at that. Page 15.